Hey everybody, this is herculespetix, founder, curator, docent, and gift shop employee of the herculespetix Academy of Comic Book Studies. Today we're going to be looking at Cerebus World Tour Book and Cerebus Jam. These were two interesting little one-shots that Dave Sim put out, allowing other artists to play around with his great creation, Cerebus. Cerebus World Tour came out in 1995, and Cerebus Jam came out in 1985. But we're going to look at World Tour first, because this reprints stuff chronologically earlier than Cerebus Jam. This is going to be reprinting lots of comics from the early 80s. So let's crack these open. So this comic was a benefit book. That year, Dave Sim and some other independent creators were going on the Spirits of Independence tour. Basically, these artists pooled their talents and money and time to go on a tour to all these conventions. And this basically helped subsidize it because there was going to be a lot of traveling. And start off with a beautiful cover by Dave Sim. Pretty funny stuff. Cerebus is on this plane, this horrible screaming baby, and this fat lady is crowding him out of his seat. This is pretty nice stuff. I like this inside front cover where I thought it was a misprint. I thought like, oh, I got a bad copy or something. But every issue of Cerebus would have this little editorial from Dave Sim and running along the side here. But half of it's cut off. And as you look over, you realize Cerebus is shoving the page to the left. And he's saying, oh, shut up, Sim. We don't want to hear you blather. Pretty clever, pretty fun stuff. So the majority of these comics were created for the Cerebus collections that came out in the early 80s, called Swords of Cerebus. These were before he started doing the big phone book editions of Cerebus reprints. And they were basically kind of thin graphic novels, 6 issues each, I think they reprinted. And to sweeten the deal, Dave Sim had new backup stories. And every story, he got like some big-time comic artist to either pencil or ink or like basically collaborate with. And he gets some pretty big names, and they're all pretty fun. So this first one is from Swords of Cerebus #1. The name of the game is Diamondback. Layouts by Marshall Rogers. At the time, Marshall Rogers was pretty hot shit. He had already done his Batman run with Steve Englehart. He was a big name in the industry. So it's pretty cool that he agreed to do this for Dave Sim. You know, at the time, Cerebus was a little black and white comic. Strangely enough, there's a little piece of gossip in the afterword where Dave Sim talks about the contributors. Apparently at the time, Marshall Rogers was sleeping with Dave Sim's wife. You know, it was a different time. The late 70s, early 80s. I guess people were swinging and whatever. So, strangely enough, maybe he felt guilty about banging his wife. So he said, yeah, I'll do some layouts for your Cerebus story. This takes place at a time in Cerebus' life where he's very rich. He's got a lot of money. Came into a windfall. Very early, these are all like pretty early in Cerebus' life when he's still just a wandering barbarian type. He's kind of interesting. So Diamondback is this poker-like game. And because Cerebus he's got plenty of money, he basically spends a long time just playing Diamondback and getting drunk at taverns. He's totally content doing that. And it has all the rules for Diamondback. We see all the hands you can play. So it does seem like a game you could really play if you had these cards. Like Dave Sim really thought it out. Thought it through. So as you can see, you know, Dave Sim's not the Dave Sim we came to know and loathe. He's not quite there with the human faces. I mean, this is Marshall Rogers just doing layouts. So Dave Sim's doing some of the penciling too, and, you know, drawing all of the Cerebus characters himself. Kind of looks like fanzine art from the late 70s, you know. This came out in 1981, by the way. But the comic timing is already there. Dave Sim's just so good at just the funny bantering between characters. Basically, Cerebus he's really good at Diamondback. He's kind of becoming this legend. And he's just insulting and infuriating and mocking to all the guys who try to beat him at Diamondback. There's these two little fanboys who hang out behind him the whole time. They're kind of like bickering about like who's his biggest fan or who saw him first or heard of him first. They're just totally in awe of Cerebus's acumen at Diamondback. One day this guy comes in, Leopold, the gambling priest. He's famous, he's one of the best Diamondback players ever. And it's kind of a neat idea. I guess he's this priest who gambles and then takes all the money to build like a new orphanage or add an extension to some cathedral. And Cerebus beats him in one hand and sends him packing. So the two fanboys of Cerebus, they start getting in this argument about who lost his money to Cerebus first. And they both have a differing memories about the event. And they actually start fighting. And it turns into this huge barroom brawl. The table that Cerebus was playing Diamondback on with all of his gold that he won, one of the guys lands on it and the gold goes flying. Everyone starts scrambling for the gold, all the patrons. And at first Cerebus is all like, get back, get off that's my gold. And then he thinks to himself, what am I doing? I got plenty of gold, but a good scrap is hard to come by. And he leaps into the fray joyously. Kind of captures Cerebus's, personality at the time when he was a young barbarian. He just, he loved gold. He loved money, but he really just loved having a good time and loved having kicks. This next story is from Swords of Cerebus #2, same year. And this is inked by Joe Rubinstein, a longtime Marvel Comics inker. He inked all the greats, Frank Miller, Michael Golden, John Byrne when he was good, and improved on them. He was a really good inker, one of the best inkers in mainstream comics. And you can totally see the difference. It's a very slick sheen he adds. This one's called The Morning After, and it's a wordless comic, and it's basically about just showing Cerebus dealing with a hangover from the night before. Love this total like lettering. It's like something from the Hulk, if the Hulk had better lettering at the time. His head is just pounding. So he's doing all these things to alleviate his pain. He drinks out of this trough, guzzles all this water. The pounding kind of goes down after he does that. He buys all these eggs and just eats them raw. Eats like, 30 eggs or something. Just look at all this lettering. So it's getting a little better. Goes to a blacksmith and pays him to put his head in a vise. And he squeezes the vise on his head, and I guess it just goes pop. Like it pops the pain out of his head, the pounding. But then he's got this little pop, 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 pop in his head. So he goes to this barber. A boiling hot towel gets thrown on his face. Or, I'm sorry, he asked the barber to do it. And then it works. All that shit, the pounding's gone, the popping's gone. And then the punchline is, as soon as he's done, he goes to sit in front of this tavern, opening time noon. So he's just going to wait till it opens to start the whole thing over again. This next one is called What Happened Between Issues 20 and 21? And it's exactly that. Dave Sim wrote this and penciled this story just to fill a little interlude between these two issues. And it's pretty good. It's this really interesting little bit of intrigue. Cerebus is someone has drugged him And all these various characters are like kidnapping him and abducting him because apparently he's this valuable chess piece in the story. I can't remember back to that issue. I haven't read that in a long time. But the beauty of this is it's inked by Gene Day, the amazing and tragic comic artist. He died at like 31 from overwork. He died of a heart attack. I guess he was working so hard drawing comics, he neglected his health and died super young. Really nice things here. Of course, as Anchor, I think he's adding some backgrounds and definitely this polish. This is before Gerhard did backgrounds for Dave Sim. And you almost get like a preview of what would happen when Gerhard takes over. Really adds a nice polish to Dave Sim's, cartoony work. But I gotta say, he's also making the faces way better. Gene Day is definitely, inking this hard. He ends up at this carnival. He's basically comatose. He doesn't know what's going on. He's unconscious. But I like this little shout out to Bernie Wrightson. Incredible houseplant that looks like a man. It's Swamp Thing's head. Bernie, the amazing amputee with 2 heads. This Bernie Wrightson caricature. Kind of fun. This is some nice art. Gene Day was so good at like using the duotone and zipatone, all that stuff. Man, I read all Gene Day. Pretty much his major work was Master of Kung Fu, and I recently read those all, reread them like a year ago, and God, the work is insane. It's almost not surprising that he worked himself to death. The detail he puts on every page when he's penciling and inking, it's bizarre. It's nuts. Crazy. There's Astoria, longtime Cerebus character, one of his great characters that he created. So this next story is called Magic King. And this is very early in Cerebus's history. You can tell by the cartooniness of Cerebus. He definitely changed the model of Cerebus after the first, 10 issues. But I like it. I kind of miss when Dave Sim drew Cerebus like this. Reminds me of like an animated cartoon character. Very fun looking. This was made for some Canadian anthology comic that never came out. Dave Sim figured that he'd make a Cerebus story. More people would see it in this anthology than maybe by Cerebus. But he just used it in Swords of Cerebus since he had it lying around. Cerebus is like falling through time and space in this void, and he lands on this platform, and this wizard shows up. He seems kind of omnipotent, and he's looking for Cerebus in the Book of Beasties. He's like, what kind of creature are you? We see how omnipotent he is. He's just like stretching Cerebus and warping him. Some pretty fun stuff right there too. Such a 70s looking character design for this wizard with the crazy hair and the mutton chops. So he realizes that's an aardvark. He finds it in the book. And apparently in the world of Cerebus, aardvarks are these incredibly rare creatures that can magnify a magician's spell 100-fold. So they're very powerful in a way. And this wizard tells Cerebus about how, he's one of the good wizards, and the good wizards and the evil wizards have kind of been in a stalemate for a long time. So he's hoping to basically cast a spell to summon a great weapon to fight the evil wizards and, turn the tide on them. And he asks Cerebus if he can use him as a focal point. Cerebus basically agrees to shut him up. This guy's pretty ponderous. And he's rhyming all the time. His spells always have like some stupid rhyme. So he does the spell through Cerebus. I kind of like that. shoots it right through Cerebus's eyes. And Cerebus passes out and wakes up back in the real world, wondering if the guy found his ultimate weapon of unmatched might. And then we see on the final page the wizard, and I guess he summoned like a Sherman tank. And he wonders to himself what he's going to do with a huge iron carriage and no horses. So he has no idea what it is. That's all Dave Sim, by the way. These next ones are also all Dave Sim. These are one-page comics that Dave Sim drew for the Comic Spiders Guide. Pretty much just like he figured it would almost be an advertisement for Cerebus, because the whole industry read Comic Spiders Guide at that time. So not only would he get paid for having a comic strip in Comic Spiders Guide, but it would kind of be showing off the brand, the Cerebus brand. Obviously, as you can tell, a pretty nice parody of Prince Valiant. Pretty well done. This might be the earliest stuff in the book. This is like 1980. Cerebus had just started. So this Prince Valiant character, his name's Silver Spoon. He's a total spoiled, rich turd douchebag. Just vain, stupid as fuck. Just a completely entitled little shit. They're on a ship, it sinks, they end up on this island. The natives of the island grab them and capture them. And it looks like they're gonna kill them. But the Pal Nu army shows up. I forgot to mention Silver Spoon he's a spoiled little brat because his dad is the Duke of Pal Nu, a very rich and powerful man. And if you've read Cerebus, you know the Duke of Pal Nu, one of the great characters from the first 25 or maybe 50 issues of Cerebus. Looks like Groucho Marx. This son, just to show what a little piece of crap he is, he totally lies and says, this Cerebus guy kidnapped me and was going to kill me. Kill him, Dad. But Lord Julius, the Duke of Pal Nu, he knows what a little shit his son is. He has one of his soldiers knock him out with a rock. And he gives Cerebus a reward and says, thanks for taking care of my kid. Here we go. Here's a little ad for at the time, the current Cerebus. Number 14. So this is very early on in Cerebus's history. Oh, this one's so nice. This was from Swords of Cerebus number 6. A Night in the Town, another wordless comic. So Gerhard has shown up in Cerebus. And Dave Sim got him to do the backgrounds on this nice little short story. I love this first panel. So Cerebus is carousing. He's drunk out of his mind. And look at this. I love this. Gerhard drew the backgrounds like all warped and wobbly, because that's how Cerebus is seeing that, because he's so wasted. He finds this dead guy in the snow. Some guy froze to death the night before. And he befriends him and starts hauling him around like Weekend at Bernie's style. Gerhard is such a mystery character. He's, showed up in Cerebus pretty early on, probably drew 250 issues of Cerebus, the backgrounds. Never did anything else as far as I know. No, never did another comic, never did backgrounds for anyone else. Just very strange. I've never read an interview with him, never read an article about him. He's just such a character. I got to look that up on the internet. So basically this cop shows up, kind of bailiff type guy. And he's just, using the pictograms because it's silent. He's like, this guy's dead. And Cerebus is like, he's not dead. He's arguing with him. And he throws the guy at the bailiff. And he just catches him. And then he says, I'm taking you to jail. Cerebus runs. And this guy tries to chase Cerebus, but he's not fast enough. And he walks away, pissed off. So Cerebus comes out of hiding and grabs the dead guy and continues his carousing with him. That's a good one. Oh, this next one, guys, is amazing. Cerebus Dreams. This is the only Cerebus story ever that Dave Sim had nothing to do with. Barry Windsor-Smith drew this and wrote it. He basically just wrote and drew it and sent it to Dave Sim and said, hey, you want to put this in Swords of Cerebus? I believe this appeared in number 5. So this is like 1983. And Dave Sim was like, fuck yeah. Because if you guys know Cerebus, the first 25 issues were a complete homage to Barry Windsor-Smith's Conan comics. Totally trying to draw on the style of Barry Windsor-Smith, that early 70s style he had. You know, of course he wasn't as good, but it's very obvious that he was trying to ape that style. So like the title says, this is a total dream, very surreal, very dreamlike and weird. Another silent comic. Beautiful art. This is also interesting because this is the time when Barry Windsor-Smith wasn't even drawing comics. Basically from the mid-70s on, he kind of retired from comics, just did portfolios and fine art prints. Didn't come back to drawing comics like, 84, 85, when he started doing stuff for Marvel again. So this, not only is it amazing that he did this for Dave Sim, but at the time he wasn't doing comics for anybody. So he must have really liked Cerebus. I love this weird Harlequin-looking guy shows up. He's got a violin and a bow. And there's something about him that is horrifying to me. Oh, he doesn't have a weapon. He's just playing his violin. I love the way the notes are all warped coming out, like just jumping around. This is masterful shit. This guy's so scary for some reason. He's all getting in Cerebus's face. Just that panel right there. I don't even know why he's scary, but he is. He's terrifying to me. Oh, this is definitely worth the price of admission, the story alone. So this next comic, also worth the price of admission. This is bizarre. So I guess this was never printed anywhere. It was just some private comic. Dave Sim was hanging out with Chester Brown at a comic convention, I think in the early 80s. And they said, hey, we should do a jam strip together. So Chester Brown did all the odd numbered panels, started it off, and Dave Sim does all the even ones. And I've never seen such a seamless jam comic before. Dave Sim, it seems like he's trying to ape Chester Brown's style. To be honest, a lot of this, if you didn't tell me that this was a jam comic, I wouldn't know. I'd just say, oh, there's some weird Chester Brown comic. But this one is very just dreamlike, just bizarre high surrealism going on here. I don't know, there's this crazy monster. Someone's feeding this bug to him. Another set of really strong hands grabs the tongue. We never even see these characters. The little bug grows wings, turns into this butterfly creature. He gets his wing caught in the mouth of that monster who won't let go. Man, this is just nuts. So with one wing, he flies away, grabbing this character, this monster. And it's so weird. This character, I don't know if it was supposed to be that, but he totally reminds me of My Pal Foot, the Shags mascot who's on their album. Really reminds me of Foot. It doesn't really make much sense, but it does have some kind of weird, plot that's just so dreamlike. This is kind of cute. They have a little intermission, and we see Cerebus and Chester Brown's bunny character doing a little tap dance on the stage, and then we get back to the story, part 2. I gotta say, this comic really reminds me of like Jim Woodring stuff, where it's just like all these random things happening. Just a complete like personal mythology is being depicted. Like almost like this. It seems like something from my subconscious that I've thought of before in a dream or something. I don't know. It's just very odd. Really wonderful stuff though. So all these crazy incidences kind of switches to this woman receiving a telegram. It says, "You killed your husband." We have no idea who her husband is. And then all these butterflies kind of descend on her. It's almost like The Birds. It's like a horror movie. She's terrified. They're chasing after her. Then we cut away to Foot eating this guy. And we got these three little girls watching. These kind of evil twin girls are laughing at this guy's getting devoured. But one girl's just like, "We should tell our parents. We should do something. We should help him." And they're basically just like, "Cut it out. He'd be swallowed before you could even get to mom and dad's place." They're pretty evil little twins. So when apparently the woman with the butterflies is her mom. And this scene, it gets even weirder. She's kind of sweating and she starts taking off her clothes, and it looks like the butterflies are, I don't know, pleasuring her or something, or fluttering around her nether regions. Obviously here now, that's Dave Sim. So strange. Oh, yeah, so it just ends because they just never finished it. I guess they did it for months. They just kept handing the pages back. But I guess they, life got in the way or they got tired of it. And then we have a little Dave Sim afterward talking about all the contributors. This is definitely enlightening. Okay, Cerebus Jam, number 1. The only issue of this, unfortunately, I wish this continued. This is a really fun comic. Starting right off with the beautiful Bill Sienkiewicz cover. Look at this. So nice. This is like right around the time when Bill Sienkiewicz was becoming Bill Sienkiewicz. Electra Assassin, I think, had just come out. And I love this too. Bill Sienkiewicz never did like funny, humorous, funny animal comics. Look how good he does Cerebus. Totally captures the facial expressions, the personality of Cerebus. Even though he was the kind of guy who always drew kind of realistically, for the most part. But it's just wonderful cover. So it's nice. All the stories have a little introduction talking about the contributors. And the first one is by Scott and Bo Hampton, the great cartoonists from the 80s. Well, they're still going, but that was their heyday. This one's called The Defense of Fort Columbia. I like in the introduction that Dave Sim says that when he was working with the brothers in real life, they actually were like constantly bickering, just like brothers do. So it's almost like they're drawing themselves in the Cerebus story, because these two brothers are totally bickering the whole time. And Dave Sim is just so good, like I said, at dialogue. It's just really like, he's got a nuance for the way people talk and argue, and it's pretty funny stuff. Basically, the plot of this is Cerebus is with these two guys. They snuck out of this castle that was under siege. They're trying to get reinforcements. But these guys are just arguing about the right way to go, the quickest way forever. And Cerebus is just like, oh, God damn it. And I love this how just silently in the background we see the castle. It's too late. They've dicked around too long. It's totally being rent asunder by catapults, and it's on fire. And of course, those two are still just arguing with each other and squabbling. And Cerebus just walks off like, fuck. Really nice. So almost all of these, Gerhard does the backgrounds. Dave Sim draws the Cerebus character, and then the guest artist draws all the other characters. This is interesting. They got Murphy Anderson, who would assume in 1985 was probably retired. This might be the last comic Murphy Anderson ever drew. So this is called The First Invention of Armor, 1404. In the little introduction, it says that armor actually, as far as anyone knows, it was developed in 1456. But apparently this blacksmith made the first suit of armor, but nobody knew about it. And we'll find out why in a second. I don't know about this art. I think Murphy Anderson was past his prime. Not that interesting. But we do have beautiful Gerhard backgrounds to look at. So this blacksmith makes a suit of armor. Look at that, speaking of Gerhard. That is just beautiful shit. So we see this bridge. Cerebus is kind of having a debate with his friend, a bear. And the blacksmith shows up. And he's kind of cocky. He's all full of himself. He's like, look what I made, guys. You mercenaries aren't going to be needed here anymore. I'm going to make a bunch of these suits for the king. And we won't need mercenaries to fight our battles. We'll be able to fight off any invader with these amazing suits of armor. And Cerebus says, it seems like it would inhibit your movement a lot. You couldn't even jump. He's like, no, look, I can. It just takes a little more effort. He jumps up on the railing of the bridge and loses his balance and falls into the water. And this shows like just the great comic timing of Sim, where we see the guy blub, 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 his oxygen, air bubbles, and they stop. He's obviously drowned. And just 3 silent panels, Cerebus and Bear just looking at the water. And then they instantly just go right back to their debate as if nothing happened. They don't try to rescue the guy or anything. They're just like, nah, what an idiot. Oh, look at that. Fucking love Gerhard, man. So nice. Oh, this one's really nice. Terry Austin, one of the great inkers of mainstream comics history. It's such a shame that guy didn't pencil more, because the few times he did pencil, he's a really damn good penciler. As we can see by this character he draws, Squint Eye the Sailor. Terry Austin was famous for loving Popeye, and a lot of times he would sneak Popeye into the backgrounds of the comics he inked. So this is I imagine Dave Sim knew that and wrote this story for him. We see young Cerebus, he's a cute little kid, and he's wandering the docks looking for Squint Eye the Sailor. And this guy says, I hasn't the faintest idea. What do you want him for? And Cerebus says, I heard that he's the strongest sailor who ever lived, and I want him to bend this steel bar for me to prove it. Just Squint, I think this looks so good, especially with the great backgrounds. So this kind of Bluto character shows up, also drawn by Terry Austin, and starts a fight with Squint Eye. I mean, I don't think it's a spoiler alert to let you, it's obviously Squint Eye the Sailor. And Bluto slugs him. And so Squint Eye grabs the iron bar from Cerebus's hand. He makes a little ribbon around his wrist and then gives him a wallop. Sends him flying and knocks him out. I love this look on little Cerebus's face. He's so cute. He's just totally in awe. He's like, oh my God, this is Squint Eye, my hero. And Squint Eye just takes off. And we see Cerebus walks away in a daze. And he has this little thought balloon of like, obviously like hero worship. He's like, maybe I'll grow up to be like as cool as Squint Eye one day. I love that. Sorry to keep talking about this, but look at these beautiful backgrounds by Gerhard. It's so good. But almost as good as the Terry Austin drawn Squint Eye. Man, I wish there was hundreds of pages of Squint Eye the Sailor comics from Terry Austin. Okay, guys. Will Eisner. He got Will Eisner. Will Eisner hadn't drawn the Spirit and probably, well, he did a few covers here and there, whatever. But quite a coup. I guess Will Eisner must have really admired Dave Sim to do this for him. Look at this right off the first page, this beautiful homage to the famous Spirit logos of the splash pages. Cerebus Jam. And it's this brickwork that spells it out. Apparently, Dave Sim sent the pages to Will Eisner, and he basically just said, "Oh, just lightly pencil, the Spirit and Commissioner Dolan. I know you're busy, whatever." And Will Eisner apparently got totally caught up in it, and drew a bunch of panels, and he fully inked Dolan and the Spirit, and a few other things. He just got carried away. He said he felt like a little kid again drawing it. So, excuse me. The narrator of this comic is basically the janitor at Sheriff Dolan's office. He's the guy who sweeps up. Here's the panel that Will Eisner couldn't resist doing. Very Spirit-like panel, very cinematic, looking in through the window with the rain. And here's Sheriff Dolan, obviously, it's Commissioner Dolan. And Cerebus is arguing with him. He refuses to pay a fine that Sheriff Dolan says he has to pay, or he's going to go to the clink. I guess he's got this strong arm muscle. And the narrator says, calls himself the Spirit or the Wraith or some such. So the Spirit is going to escort Cerebus to his jail cell. But Cerebus is going to fall for that shit. So he just he punches the Spirit in the knee. And they get into this big Donnybrook. It's just bizarre to me that this is a real comic. Cerebus Fighting the Spirit by the original creators. So weird. Pretty fun stuff. And then finally, the narrator, he stops the fight. He says, "Guys, I'll pay the fine for this guy. Just stop fighting. You're making a mess out of everything." So he pays the fine. Spirit's kind of pissed off. He wanted to keep fighting. But Dolan's like, "What can you do? The fine's paid." So the narrator says, how Cerebus just left without so much as a thank you, which would probably have bothered some folks. But I've been keeping things clean for a lot of years. And if there's anything I don't need, it's a lot of extra work. Which is very ironic because Will Eisner did do extra work. He did all this extra stuff because he got so into it. We even see Will Eisner. So it's almost like Will Eisner in the world of Cerebus is the janitor for Sheriff Dolan, who also still has a drawing board with his name on it. Oh, that's some fun stuff. That's good. That's good reading. This is kind of nice. It's basically an ad for the Cerebus portfolio. But we get to see a plate, so we get a little small pinup. I'd like to see those one day. So there you go, guys. Cerebus World Tour Book and Cerebus Jam. I hope you enjoyed looking at these really fun comics. I think even if you're not a big fan of Cerebus, we all know that Dave Sim went off the rails, whatever. But he created some damn good comics. And even after he went off the rails, he still was an amazing talent. Just fucking bonkers. And whatever craziness he's got in his head. It's kind of sad. But he did finish Cerebus. Quite an achievement. 300 roughly monthly issues for 28 years. It's kind of crazy. I remember when I was a little kid, I read the Comics Journal when he was first starting out in an interview or an article, and he laid out the plan. He said, "Yep, I'm going to do this for 28 years till issue 300." And I remember reading that saying, that is not going to happen. No. And, well, fuck me. He did it. So it still blows me away that some guy did that, dedicated his life to a project. It's almost like those 7-Up movies from England. It's nuts that they just, they keep cranking them out. It's just it's beyond a lifelong project. I mean, Cerebus wasn't. It's only 28 years, but very impressive body of work. even though the last eighth of it is nonsense and silliness. Okay, I guess that's it for today's video. Hopefully I'll see you here next time at the herculespetix Academy of Comic Book Studies.